The vast emptiness of space stretched before the diplomatic vessel, a sleek silver craft that seemed almost fragile against the immense crystalline structure of the Voron Collective's ship. Captain Hyun Park stood perfectly still, her posture rigid yet relaxed, eyes fixed on the alien vessel that dominated the view from the bridge's main viewport. Jae Kim, the communication officer, watched his captain with a mixture of tension and quiet admiration. His fingers hovered above the communication panel, waiting for the inevitable transmission. The bridge was silent, filled with the soft hum of electronic systems and the almost imperceptible breathing of the human crew. The Voron ship pulsed with an otherworldly light, its biomechanical surface shifting and changing like living metal. Tendrils of strange energy seemed to reach out, probing the human vessel's defenses. Each crew member knew this was a moment that would define humanity's future. Suddenly, the communication systems crackled to life. A sound like grinding stones filled the bridge, part language, part mechanical translation. The creature that appeared on the viewscreen was Nightmare incarnate. Multiple limbs twisted and moved independently, obsidian-like skin reflecting light in impossible ways. Its body seemed to be both organic and mechanical, a fusion of technology and living matter that defied human understanding. The translator's cold, mechanical voice cut through the tension: humans will surrender. Resistance is futile. Most species would have shown fear. Most would have trembled or begun desperate negotiations. But Captain Hyun Park was not most people. Her response came without a hint of emotion, almost as if she were discussing something as mundane as the weather. "We're listening," she said, her voice calm and steady. Jae Kim felt a chill run down his spine. He knew that tone. It was the same tone she had used during the Mars colony crisis, the same voice that had negotiated through the worst solar storm in human history. There was something underneath that calmness, a current of something deeper, more dangerous. The Voron seemed momentarily confused. Their communication algorithms were designed to detect fear, to measure the psychological breaking point of different species. But Captain Park showed nothing. No fear, no anger, no desperation. Just a simple, direct acknowledgement. Around her, the crew remained equally composed. Each member of the diplomatic mission had been carefully selected. They were not just diplomats, but representatives of humanity's most adaptable and resilient individuals. Their training went far beyond traditional diplomatic protocols. The ship itself was a marvel of human engineering. Seemingly simple from the outside, it carried technologies that could adapt and transform in ways the Voron could not yet comprehend. Every system, every component had multiple backup plans, hidden capabilities that could be activated in milliseconds. Hyun Park's eyes never left the alien representative. She was studying it, analyzing every movement, every subtle shift in its bizarre anatomy. Years of training, of psychological warfare preparation, had prepared her for this moment. The Voron continued its transmission, listing supposed technological superiorities, describing civilizations that had fallen before them in moments. Each statement was meant to instill fear, to break the human spirit before any real conflict could begin. But fear was a choice. And humanity had long ago chosen a different path. Jay watched as a slight smile began to form at the corner of Captain Park's mouth. It was not a smile of aggression or triumph. It was something else, a look of quiet understanding, of a predator who knows something the prey has not yet realized. The bridge remained calm. No raised voices. No panic. Just a group of humans listening, waiting, understanding that this moment was just the beginning of something much larger. The Voron had made their declaration. Now it was humanity's turn to respond. And they would respond in a way no one could predict. The communication screen flickered with a violent display of historical conquests. Hundreds of alien worlds blazed across the background, each a testament to the Voron Collective's brutal efficiency. Commander Crow leaned forward, his multiple limbs moving in a complex dance of intimidation. Behind him, holographic images showed entire planetary systems reduced to dust. Civilizations that had existed for thousands of years disappeared in moments, their entire cultural records erased by the Voron's technological might. Each image was a calculated psychological weapon, designed to break the spirit of any potential resistance. Jae Kim watched Captain Hyun Park carefully. She remained absolutely still, her breathing so controlled it was almost invisible. Most human diplomats would have shown some reaction, a twitch, a gulp, a moment of visible fear. But not Hyun Park. Commander Kral's translator crackled with a sound like breaking glass. Do you understand the magnitude of our technological superiority? The question was more of a declaration, a statement meant to crush hope before it could even form. The bridge of the human vessel remained eerily quiet. Each crew member was carefully selected, trained to maintain absolute composure under the most extreme psychological pressure. They were not just diplomats, they were human representatives chosen for their mental resilience. Kral's body shifted, revealing intricate biomechanical details that seemed to pulse with an inner energy. His form was a nightmare of organic and technological fusion, limbs that could reconfigure, skin that could transform, a body that was part living creature and part advanced machine. The historical records continued to scroll. Planets burning. Civilizations collapsing. Entire species being systematically eliminated or enslaved. Each image was a weapon, designed to communicate one simple message: resistance was impossible. But Hyun Park saw something different. Where Kral saw a history of conquest, she saw patterns. Weaknesses. Opportunities. We understand perfectly, she replied. Those 3 words hung in the communication space. They were not a surrender. They were not a challenge. They were a simple statement of fact. Jay felt a strange tension building. Commander Kral seemed momentarily confused. His communication algorithms were designed to detect fear, to measure psychological breaking points. But Captain Park showed nothing. No fear. No anger. Just a calm, almost disinterested acknowledgement. The Voran diplomat's limbs twitched. For the first time, something like uncertainty entered his communication pattern. These humans were not behaving according to any known diplomatic protocol. Hyun's eyes never left the screen. She was analyzing everything: the way Kral moved, the specific frequencies of the transmission, the subtle variations in the holographic displays. Years of training had taught her that true information came not from what was said, but from how it was presented. The crew around her remained perfectly composed. They were breathing, but their breathing was synchronized. Their postures were relaxed but ready. Each person was a coiled spring of potential energy, waiting. Commander Kral continued his display of technological superiority. But with each passing moment, something was changing. The initial certainty was beginning to crack. These humans were not responding with the expected fear or desperation. They were listening. And in that listening, something dangerous was brewing. Jay noticed a slight smile beginning to form at the corner of Captain Park's mouth. It was not a smile of aggression or triumph. It was the smile of someone who knew something that had not yet been revealed. The communication continued. The Voran displayed more records of conquest. More images of destroyed worlds. More demonstrations of technological power. But something fundamental had changed. The humans were no longer just receiving. They were preparing to respond. And their response would be nothing like what the Voran expected. The first signs were subtle. Tiny digital whispers, almost invisible to most monitoring systems. Commander Kral's communication technicians noticed small glitches, a frequency shift here, a momentary data interruption there. Nothing serious. Not yet. But these were not random errors. Each interruption was carefully planned, meticulously designed. Like tiny invisible fingers probing the complex Voran communication network, human technology was moving with a precision that defied conventional understanding. Jae Kim's fingers danced across his console. His movements were calm, almost rhythmic. To an outside observer, he looked like someone casually checking routine systems. But each touch was a strategic intervention, a calculated infiltration. The Voran technological grid was considered impenetrable. Generations of conquered civilizations had tried and failed to breach their defenses. Their communication systems were designed with multiple redundant layers, complex quantum encryption protocols that should have been impossible to crack. But humans worked differently. Where other species saw barriers, humans saw puzzles. Where alien technologies built walls, human technologies found unexpected paths. Each interruption was not just a technical maneuver, it was a statement of human adaptability. Commander Krell's central monitoring systems began sending alarming signals. Small subsystems were going offline. Communication pathways were being subtly redirected. The infiltration was happening everywhere simultaneously, like a perfectly choreographed digital dance. Most species would panic. Most would launch aggressive counterattacks. But the human approach was surgical, precise, almost elegant. Quantum data streams began shifting. Encryption keys that should have been unbreakable were being gently manipulated. Not destroyed. Not crashed. Just redirected. Transformed. Understood. The humans weren't just breaking the Voron's technological superiority. They were learning from it. Analyzing it. Preparing to understand systems that were supposed to be incomprehensible. Captain Hyun Park watched the process with a calm that bordered on indifference. To her, this was not an attack. This was communication. A different kind of dialogue. Krell's technicians worked frantically. Their multiple limbs moved across complex holographic interfaces, trying to trace the infiltrations. But each time they thought they'd found a source, the digital intrusion would shift, would transform. It was like trying to catch water with bare hands. The Voron began to realize something terrifying. These humans were not just technologically competent. They were technologically creative. They saw systems not as fixed structures, but as living, adaptable networks that could be understood, modified, reimagined. Jay's console showed complex algorithms dancing across screens. Each line of code was a weapon more sophisticated than any physical instrument. They were dismantling the Voron's technological pride piece by calculated piece. Not with force. Not with destruction. But with understanding. The communication grid began to feel less like an impenetrable fortress and more like a complex musical instrument that the humans were learning to play. Commander Krell watched in growing horror. His species had conquered countless civilizations. They had destroyed worlds. Erased entire cultural memories. But they had never encountered a species that could deconstruct their most advanced systems with such calm precision. Humans were rewriting the rules of technological engagement. And they were doing it with a smile. The turning point had arrived. Not with a dramatic explosion. Not with a violent confrontation. But with a quiet, methodical demonstration of human potential. The Voron were about to learn that technological superiority was not just about power. It was about adaptability. About understanding. About seeing potential where others saw only barriers. And in this moment, humans were proving they were masters of that art. The silence on the bridge was thick with tension. Captain Hyun Park's words hung in the communication space like a carefully balanced blade. Negotiation is our preferred first option. But we're equally prepared for any alternative. Commander Krell's complex biomechanical systems began processing at speeds beyond human comprehension. Massive computational networks churned through millions of potential scenarios. War algorithms that had predicted victory for thousands of years suddenly faced an impossible calculation. The probability of human submission, 0. This was unprecedented. Every species the Voron had encountered had shown fear. Had broken. Had submitted. But these humans were different. They weren't just resisting. They were analyzing. Understanding. Transforming the very concept of conflict. Jae Kim watched the calculations unfold on his screens. Each digital pulse represented not just numbers, but a fundamental shift in galactic understanding. The humans weren't just defending. They were redefining the rules of engagement. Krell's limbs moved in complex patterns of uncertainty. His entire species' history of conquest was being challenged by a single human crew. Their technological superiority suddenly felt less like an absolute truth and more like a fragile assumption. The communication grid, which moments ago had been under systematic human infiltration, now felt like a delicate negotiation space. Not a battlefield. Not a conquest. But a meeting point of potential understanding. Hyun's smile never changed. It wasn't a smile of triumph. It was a smile of quiet understanding. Of knowing something the Vorin were just beginning to realize. Conflict was a choice. Submission was a choice. Understanding was a choice. And humans were masters of choice. The war algorithms continued their calculations. But something fundamental had shifted. Where once they predicted total victory, now they were exploring collaboration. "We propose a collaborative agreement," Krall finally said. The words seemed to surprise even him. Thousands of years of cultural programming were being rewritten in a single moment. Hyun's response was simple. Calm. Direct. "We're listening." Those 3 words contained entire universes of possibility. The bridge remained perfectly still. Each crew member understood that this moment was bigger than this single encounter. This was about humanity's potential. About showing that technological superiority wasn't about destruction, but about understanding. Krall's communication systems began transmitting preliminary collaborative protocols. Not as a surrender, but as a genuine exploration of mutual potential. The Vorin were learning that humans saw the universe differently. Not as a place to be conquered, but as a space to be understood. To be explored. To be shared. Jay noticed Captain Park's eyes. They weren't looking at the alien representative. They were looking beyond. Seeing potential where others saw only conflict. This was more than a diplomatic encounter. This was a moment that would echo through galactic history. Humans had entered the conversation. And nothing would be the same again. The universe watched. And waited. The end ****.